Hello, and welcome to Gallery News and Reviews. My name is Fran Shubrook, and I'm your host for this week's program. Our series is designed to try to help keep you informed about what is going on in the public galleries in and around Halifax. This week, Mary Sparling will be saying a few words about the observance of the International Museums Week, which will be celebrated May 12th through the 18th. But before that, we'll have two interviews about the current exhibits at the Mount St. Vincent Art Gallery. Mary Sparling will be speaking with Robin Muller, a textile artist at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design, about the Biennale of New Quebec Tapestry. And Mary Evans McLaughlin will be speaking with Catherine Judah Daniel about the portrait sculptures of Doris Judah. Let's join those conversations now.
We have Robin Muller with us today to talk about the Quebec tapestries here at Mount St. Vincent Art Gallery. And it's very good of Robin to come and give us a greater insight into the skills and techniques and genius of that's behind so many of the works here. Robin, you're a textile artist yourself, as well as being on the faculty of the craft division of the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. How does all this strike you?
I think it's a very refreshing and interesting show, tapestry show. One of the nicest I've seen.
Really?
In a very long time.
We were very anxious to get it here, partly because it is the first Biennale of Quebec Tapestry in Quebec, Quebec Tapestry, and also because there are so many, there are two of the major artists in Canada, if not internationally, in Quebec, Mariette Rousseau-Vermette and Micheline Beauchemin. And of course, we're sitting in front of one by Mariette Rousseau-Vermette. I wondered if you'd like to comment on this particular piece.
This particular piece? I was, before seeing this piece, was actually more familiar with her work that she was doing before this, the very lushly colored brush tapestries, but find her new work very interesting. I know she spoke about earlier work that she'd done using strips of Canadian furs, and then when the cost of the furs became prohibitive, began using this embroidery technique, which I think is very interesting, the checkerboard effect on top of the woven tapestry to sort of simulate the effect of the furs. She seems, I believe she called them barn doors when she was here. I know she's worked, from her slides, has worked a lot with sort of plays on symmetry and on geometric images sort of paired off against each other. And then has also continued brushing the wall on the sides to give a very rich texture that's usually absent from at least very traditional tapestries. And I know that also has been one of her trademarks.
Well, one of the things that interested me a lot about this too, and that was in the installation of it, is that it is a very geometric piece, and it's very hard when you're dealing with a textile to achieve that geometric totality. And hers is perfection. It's superb. It is a rectangle. There are no little things hanging down or sagging spots anywhere. It's meant to be a rectangle. It is a rectangle. And another of the two very major artists here is Micheline Beauchemin, and her very gleaming, what we almost think of as a disco type piece is here. Did this work surprise you, Micheline's?
Yes, I wasn't familiar with her work before seeing this, but find it very interesting. I was also interested to know that she had studied South American weaving techniques, really? South American Indian weaving techniques, which is very interesting to see such a contemporary piece, using totally contemporary materials and ideas dealing in three dimensions, coming from someone who had studied such traditional work. But then obviously she's incorporated the craftsmanship as well of the real traditional Indian weavers, the detail to finishing and knotting and intertwining and weaving techniques.
And of course it is, as you said, sculptural. It's off the wall. It's an architectural textile which is freestanding. And her very dramatic use of mirrors, of course, to reflect and enhance the work.
And the architecture as well.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting to see the slides that Mariette showed of the original jurying of the slides, where the ceiling and the architecture that was reflected in the mirrors at the original jurying is very much the same as it is here.
Yeah.
And I think it really enhances the piece, the Cawthorne ceiling. I think it's nice to see in the mirrors.
Do you see any traditional pieces of weaving in the show that you enjoy?
I think the piece Un Cuisse de Job, the tapestry of the woman in the chair, is very interesting to me in that it is so close to a traditional tapestry, the flat woven pictorial kinds of techniques, the figurative subject matter, and yet it is very contemporary too, I think, in the use of metallic yarns and the way it very subtly comes out into space. And having just the carpet come out into the room, it seems like it sort of includes you in the space very nicely, and
it's very funny.
It's very humorous piece. Wonderful cat.
Yes, everybody enjoys the cat and the high heels on the woman, I think, the most. And again, that three-dimensional aspect of it too, which is interesting. And almost accidentally, we have hung it as if it were one of a bookends. It's a woman and a child, and then at the other side of the gallery we have a maternity corset. We really didn't intend that, but it seems to be apt. I know that you're interested in the maternity corset, and I understand that major weavers are very interested in that maternity corset as a piece of textile art. Could you tell us why?
I find it very interesting, especially that it's the only piece in this exhibit that's sort of very much a pop image, very much a sculptural representation of an actual object. And just find the attention to detail also in that piece very amazing. Just that every last detail is very realistically done, but also very much a tapestry technique, like very recognizable as woven fabric, but still like very convincing as a corset. And I think also the subject matter is interesting, since so many of the textile arts have been traditionally women's work. To have a statement about a women's subject done in a technique that's been done by women throughout history.
And every detail is just so well carried through. The zipper, of course, has been added as well as the lacing, but the zipper is slightly open. Everything seems to lend to the whole thing that this is a container that is just barely containing. And the straps, the garters, all woven.
All of it, the little catches on the garters, everything, the ribs just seem...
And it's almost a feeling as if the artist has had to weave it in order to get rid of it. I don't know, but I had that impression. But apparently Jack Leonard Larson
and Mildred Constantine were using that in their book.
Yes, so that it's exciting to think that one of our Canadian artists is going to be in a major publication of that sort. I know, of course, that you're interested in finger weaving, and there is a very good example of it here, I believe.
The card weaving piece. Yes, I think I find that interesting in the use of such a traditional technique that's usually done on a small scale, using cards, usually cardboard cards with holes in each corner, as a loom to rotate those and get different patterns. And I think that the variations with the patterns and the sort of adaptation to a contemporary form is real interesting. It seems like a lot of the other pieces is sort of just breaking away from tradition, like sort of almost struggling with tradition, but still making a contemporary statement and a traditional statement. I think there's a nice balance.
I find that a very beautiful piece too. Just to trace the colors in it, and of course it has such a very stained glass look to it as well. I like it very much. I suppose we just have time for one last piece, and that is one by the person to whom Marriott Rousseau Vermette gives the credit for this exhibition happening at all.
The Sauvé piece. Yeah, I think that's also a very interesting piece in terms of a very kind of painterly contemporary image being achieved by traditional tapestry techniques. Her piece also being brushed, as Marriott's are.
It was quite an undertaking for this to occur at all, as I understand it. Something like 107 works were received from all over Quebec, and Out of that, they eventually chose an exhibit of 30 pieces, and as you can see, most of them on what I would call a monumental scale, of which we have 12 here at the gallery. And some of the works we haven't talked about today are as interesting as the ones we have. And I'm very glad that you came along and were able to say a bit more about this
Thank
work.
you for inviting me. And I understand Marriott said that the additional pieces may travel at a future time.
Perhaps.
Is that right?
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're just glad to have these. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Upstairs at the Mount St. Vincent Art Gallery is an exhibition of portrait sculpture by Doris Judah. This exhibition has come about largely through the efforts of Catherine Daniel, the artist's daughter who we have here today. Now, your mother was born in 1887 at the end of the 19th century, and at this time young women were not really encouraged to think of having a profession, but your mother did have some formal training in art. Can you tell us a little bit about her background and what in her family might have led her to think of working in drawing and painting?
Well, of course, in those days, a young woman painted, and she played the piano, and she sang, and she did all the arts, once over lightly.
Exactly.
And she wasn't considered to be a social success unless she was successful in at least one of these media. In my mother's case, it's rather interesting that she spent the first part of her life needing glasses and not knowing it. And I'll never forget when she told me that she was in her 20s before she got glasses for the first time. And when she got them, she had the same stigmatism that I have too, or had, because as you get older, you get over it, I'm told.
But this must have been a revelation for her when you discovered.
Yes. In fact, it was one of the things that made her work in school such a complete drudgery to her, was the fact that she couldn't see the blackboard. So everything she learnt must have been done orally, which is really extraordinary, because today we realize that seeing is believing, even for children, perhaps even more so for children than for grown-ups.
Well, this astigmatism doesn't seem to have harmed her visual memory, though, because certainly her work has not suffered from an early astigmatism.
No. Well, she wore glasses all her life that I knew.
But it was only after marriage to your father, now, that your mother began to model and work in sculpture. Could you explain why she changed her medium?
She changed her medium because my father got thoroughly fed up with Mother doing all these perfectly beautiful sketches of people and then giving them away, because someone would say, "Oh, that's so like me. I've never had anything as good as this before. Won't you please let me have it?" And so Mother would give it away. And Dad said that he hoped she would do some work in modeling. It would take a little bit longer, and people couldn't carry it out the door with them when it was finished. So this is really what started her in modeling, was my father's insistence that she take this art of hers into some medium that would be a little more permanent.
So she retranslated the portrait sketches that she did so beautifully, and we have several of these upstairs as well, and began studying modeling. Now, in 1915, she began her study with Alfred Laliberté,
Yes.
a Canadian sculptor of some fame. And I think we could say he's the most pronounced influence on her art. Can you tell us anything about how Laliberté perhaps felt about her as a pupil?
Well, he was absolutely disgusted that she wouldn't take the year off to study in Paris, and I read from your she, instead of studying with La Liberté again, perhaps he was no longer teaching, she went to the Beaux-Arts and got into a life class. And she won again the first prize in that in 1931.
Well, let's talk about the year in Rochester a little bit. This is in the early 20s, and your father was offered a rather unique opportunity to take a sabbatical year to go to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester.
Yes.
So your mother had to leave this new career in sculpture that she started up, or at least leave her environment, and move to Rochester with the children. What was that year like for her? Say, what was the artistic climate of Rochester like?
Well, until Mother came there wasn't very much, quite frankly. And a Canadian reference book that you've already seen stated that she almost single-handedly started an art association there. And she did indeed, because I can remember there was considerable controversy between Mom and Dad as to whether we should have a maid or not. And Dad said, well, at least if we had a maid who lived in with us, we wouldn't have to pay babysitters when you go out to teach.
So she taught as well as founding the Art Association.
Oh, yes, yes. She taught classes in modeling, and they were very well attended by the Mayo Clinic doctors and nurses who were in the new field of plastic surgery.
What
I
a
can
find
remember
for them to have a sculptor, someone who was intimately familiar with the aesthetic look of the human head.
Yes, and Mother started them off doing things like Michelangelo noses and ears, and
Did she get many requests for Michelangelo noses?
but that's what you start with, you see. And then she also, some of these noses and ears were used in other sketching classes in the city. And again, through my research, I discovered that I won an honorable mention in one of these classes, which is a joke, really.
So how do you think the year in general affected her development?
Oh, I think
the year
it
in
did.
Rochester must have been good for her.
It was excellent for her. I can't think of a better one, because she had come from Montreal after a rather unfortunate family situation.
And then plunged into the life in Rochester and really set things up for Rochester, as well as had a restorative year herself. We know that Doris Judah herself felt her real work as a sculptress began after 1928, and she was most active in the decade between 1930 and 1940. Now, at this time, she was in her 40s. She had 3 children, and of course, the Depression was on. And if you take all those factors into account, it doesn't necessarily add up to an ideal environment for creative work. But your mother accomplished a great deal in these years. Can you tell us something about the conditions under which she worked in the 1930s in Montreal?
Well, I do know that Mother felt if she could put her head down after dinner, because in those days we had dinner in the middle of the day. So my father could walk down from McGill and then walk back up to McGill to work. And this was his sort of constitutional. And it was really a matter of discipline with Mother. She would leave the dinner table and go upstairs, and the dishes would be done, and she would sleep. Excuse me. And she would sleep even if she put her head down for 15 minutes and her feet up.
Helped.
She could go, on, as she said, I've got another 8 hours work if I can do this.
What about the portraits of the people? What about the people who came to the house to have their portrait done, say Molly Harrower?
Well, Molly Harrower lived at our house, so she was sort of a natural. So did Jim Barber.
And his portrait is Pipe Dreams.
Pipe Dreams, yes. And these were people that Mother took in to help finance my studies in the States. It was during the Depression. In Jim Barber's case, and in the case of another Beaux-Arts student that we had, John McLeish, for a while, they again would be caught and not always able to pay. So this created quite a tight situation.
But of course, she had them as models.
Oh yes, she had them as
And what
models.
about Dr. Hibbert? His is a very interesting story.
Well, it's particularly interesting to me because It's sort of like the lamb that was lost and is found.
Come back to the fold.
Yes. And he, along with 9 other of us, disappeared from where I was living in Halifax. And 2 of them were found by Peter Latta, who was one of the officers here. And I don't know why he recognized something in it that I guess nobody else but my father and myself and La Liberté had noticed, that this was a really remarkable piece of work, because he took it under his wing and he brought it down to Halifax. And of course, I had photographs of it, so it was very easy to identify, plus the fact that it was signed. And just today, I keep learning things about my mother's work. Just today I got a letter which Curtis Aldridge wrote me, and his name is in the program as helping. He was going to help by sending a copy of his son, Gilman, into the exhibit, but he didn't get it done in time. However,
He has a connection to the Hibbert piece.
yes, it's rather interesting that I discovered that Mother had done his son in New Jersey.
Really?
And it was after he made the mold that she signed her name. Now, most of them, I know she put her name on the actual clay and would have to cut it quite deeply and decide whereabouts it was to be. So
But in this case, she just put it on the mold.
she put it on the mold after it was cast.
These are 3 of the works in the exhibition, 3 very lovely pieces. I think you could look at the exhibition really as a small personal glimpse of the people who frequented the university and art circles of the city of Montreal in the 1930s by
Yes.
an intelligent and very perceptive woman. Thank you very much, Catherine Daniel.
We wanted to take some of the time of this program to tell people about International Museums Week, which is happening all over the world, as International says, from the week of May the 13th to the 18th. And actually it climaxes in International Museums Day on Sunday, May the 18th. But partly because that's a holiday weekend when many people are away, we in the Halifax-Dartmouth museum community decided we would observe the week leading up to that, including the 18th, as our celebration of International Museums Week. We're very rich in the Halifax-Dartmouth area in museums and galleries, and as you'll note from the credits that appear at the end of the program, there are a lot of possibilities for everyone to encounter through these many museums and galleries. But very briefly, I'll just list them, and then you can check the special exhibits that you'll find on at that time. First of all, the Dartmouth Heritage Museum across the river has a museum and a gallery. Here on the Halifax side, we have the Nova Scotia Museum, and opening during that same week will be all its branch museums. And they have a special temporary exhibit called Nova Scotia Museum Collects that will be opening that week too. Among the galleries, we have quite a wide variety, as many of you already know. The Art Gallery of Nova Scotia has an exhibit of Charlotte Lindgren's, as well as the permanent collection on view there. And the Dalhousie Art Gallery will have an exhibit of Christiana Flug, plus a lecture that week by Dr. Flug about his life's work. We have 2 at St. Mary's Art Gallery, the last of an exhibit by William Kurlick, a Canadian artist, and his A Prairie Boy's Summer. And at Mount St. Vincent Gallery, these 2 exhibits that you're looking at today. At the Center for Art Tapes, some special videotapes at Eye Level Gallery, a particular performance. And I hope that I haven't forgotten anyone. And just a quick check, I don't think I have. But you can be assured that all of the staff at all of these institutions would be particularly delighted to arrange tours of the facilities, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, with the personnel, and about the material that they either have in their permanent collection or in the space on a temporary basis. And we really would welcome all of you to come and help us celebrate, as people will be the world over, from behind the Iron Curtain to the Western world.
Remember, the Biennale of New Quebec Tapestry and the portrait sculpture of Doris Judah will be on view at the Mount St. Vincent Art Gallery until May 18th. Now here's a calendar of the shows currently being presented at the other galleries around Halifax. At St. Mary's University Art Gallery, there will be showing works by William Kerlick through May 21st. A show of European landscapes by Christiane Flug will open at 8 p.m. May 8th at the Dalhousie Art Gallery and run through June 8th. At the Eye Level Gallery, the group drawing show featuring works by John Clark, David Haig, Ron Shubrook, and Carol Wainio will run through just one more day, Saturday, May 9th. And there will be a dance performance by Sarah Shelton Mann and Byron Brown on May 16th at 8:30. The Center for Art Tapes will host an Audio by Artists Festival and of live and taped performances May 14th through 24th. Now, in honor of International Museums Week, we'd like to remind you that the Dartmouth Heritage Museum is featuring portraits and works from the museum collection, and the Nova Scotia Museum has permanent exhibits open daily. All branches of the museum will open throughout the province on May 15th, and an exhibition entitled The Nova Scotia Museum Collects will open on May 17th at the museum on Summer Street. We welcome your comments concerning this program. Please send them to Gallery News and Reviews, care of Dalhousie Art Gallery, Dalhousie University, Halifax, Nova Scotia, or if you prefer, phone 424-2403. At the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, there are two interesting exhibits currently on display, which will run through June 2nd. In the second floor gallery are aspects of the permanent collection, while in the main and mezzanine galleries is an exciting show of the fiber structures of Charlotte Lindgren, which will be the focus of next week's Gallery News and Reviews program. We hope you'll join us then. Thank you for watching.